Hi, my name's Cade Hughesby.
I'm Madison Lynn.
My name is Robert Butler III.
I am the producer for Timestamp.
I am the co-writer and co-director of Timestamp.
I'm a filmmaker, podcaster.
I've produced 5 features. 3 of them have been documentaries and 2 of them have been narrative.
Timestamp is about a girl named Jackie who travels back in time in order to stop her parents' unexpected and tragic death.
So she becomes very fixated on the idea that she can use this technology she's built herself to travel back in time and to change her life.
We look at movies like Back to the Future, Looper, Edge of Tomorrow, Primer. We hope to take what works in the science fiction genre, but also make it our own original thing.
We took everything that this genre has to offer and mixed it with our sense of humor, our sense of drama, and a really strong creative team that was able to put the story together.
I think Timestamp is an incredibly important movie for today's generation because we live in an era of like social media, of coming of age stories that are looking back on our past with regret. This is a movie that is telling people to move forward.
The whole story is about her coming to terms with the fact that your past is the past.
It's a really important thing to remember that the answers aren't in the past. They're something that we need to look for in the future.
The best way to live life is to look forward and look to the future.
You're looking at a group of young filmmakers promoting diversity.
It's such a rare thing to be able to create art with so many different people from so many different backgrounds.
Timestamp is a movie about the future, and you should donate to this project to help breed a future generation of filmmakers.
We just need your support.
We're trying to provide people that opportunity in exchange for their support. There's never been a better time than now.
What is up, guys? Welcome to the Meaning Of podcast. I am Ace.
This is RB3.
And this is the podcast where we talk about your favorite filmmakers and the deeper meaning within their films. And once again, RB3, we're doing a very special episode in honor of the great 4th of July premiere of Stranger Things. We're going to be talking all about Stranger Things. We're going to start off with our season 3 thoughts because it's fresh off the boat, fresh off the thoughts, fresh off the oven of Netflix, the Netflix oven, RB3. We're going to be giving our thoughts on 2 and 1 and just kind of the major themes around the whole show and how it caught fire, RB3, because I remember this premiering summer 2016, I believe.
Yeah, I think it was 2016.
Summer 2016. I think it was August or late July. It premiered and it just blew up, RB3. And it's for a lot of reasons, kind of the hook that kind of gets you into the show. But what it delivered later on and now in season 3, I still feel like especially season 2, and you and I agree on that. But season 3, it's still delivering this narrative that's continuing to grow. And I kind of like the direction they're heading. I kind of like where they're going. So let's start out real hot takes. Ready for you to swing that flaming bat, bro. That bat with the spikes in it. Shout out to Steve the Hair Harrington. Season 3, you finished it?
Yeah, I finished it.
Okay, I was gonna say, bro. I was gonna be so mad if you didn't finish this.
Nah, I finished it. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
What did you think?
It's very good television. You know, satisfying TV is definitely worthy of the binge era. Kind of stuff is made for binging, and I had a good time binging it. I mean, I think all every season I kind of just blow through within like a day because you know.
I didn't too.
Yeah,
so,
it's like popcorn, man. You're just gonna keep going until you reach the bottom of the bag, and we just like, oh man, some good popcorn. You know, I can't wait for the next time I come to movies, but I'm not gonna eat popcorn anytime in between that. You know, so it's it's definitely not like I'm gonna rewatch it. I'm definitely not gonna like, you know, think very critically of it. It's good TV, but it's not like it's anything super spectacular. But yeah, you know, Stranger Things. Salute to Netflix. Always putting out a good product and big supporter. They should give me a free account as much you know, good talk I give about Netflix.
Yeah, for real.
But you know, yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, it's interesting, man, because we talked about Netflix quite a bit in our F. Gary Gray episode, and I kind of talked to you about that New York Times article talking about the future of television, the future of movies and how streaming is taking over. And Stranger Things is an interesting example because I feel like this is the staple show, the staple movie, whatever it is on Netflix, this is the one that people go to. This is the Netflix brand as a whole. They kind of package it into Stranger Things. And I think it's a great thing to package into. It's a great thing to cater towards as far as this is what your brand represents. It represents a sci-fi coming-of-age story set in the 80s. Like, that's essentially what Stranger Things is. And the fact that Netflix uses this, but I'm going to push back on you a little bit because Kumail Nanjiani, I couldn't find the quote last week, and I still don't have it now, but he said something really interesting where he said, I think Netflix is great because they're giving so many people different opportunities, but I still feel in the very bottom of my heart, and this is Kumail Nanjiani, not me, who said, I still feel like there's so much on there, and there's so many good things that I can like and I can enjoy, but there's still nothing that I feel like, he said, I feel like Netflix would rather have a dozen things that people like than one thing that people love. There's as far as quality content on Netflix. And when he said that, I was like, that's kind of spot on. Because Stranger Things is another example of something that's good, but it's nothing groundbreaking. Like I feel like When They See Us is, which I'm still very mad at you, RB3, about that. Because I'm singing the praises of that thing, and I'm preaching for Emmys when it comes to homies on that show. Yeah. Because I do feel like that is different. That is highest quality. That is like a level that should win Emmys and should win awards and should win Oscars. I mean, unfortunately, it's not a movie, but it kind of is just one long movie, kind of like Stranger Things. Yeah. But yeah, I feel like
definitely When They See Us is better than Stranger Things, though. Yeah, 100%.
100%. Yeah, but I feel like Stranger Things is the most popular thing. It's the one thing that mass audiences. I believe Netflix came out with a tweet last week talking about what the numbers did. I think they said 40 mil or something.
40
like
million
that.
people watched
40
it for
million,
the first week.
And they said 18 mil.
Or 18 million already finished it.
Already finished it. That's huge, man. Yeah. That's enormous. That's a lot of people. And I feel like that's what's great about Stranger Things is that it's one fun adventure that you kind of it's got a lot of vibe to it, if you know what I'm saying. Yeah. It's a vibe. I don't know. People use these words. I forget. Like
it's bubblegum. To me, it's bubblegum. That's why I say it for it. Yeah,
in season 3, I'll give my quick thoughts just because you gave yours. I enjoyed it. I thought it was a lot of fun, and I tweeted this out. It felt like one long movie, and the reason why I tweeted this out as well is because of the 8 episodes. 8 episodes to me is just perfect. Yeah. That's what you need. You need 8. And I'm really speaking to the, no offense, because I love a lot of those shows too, but the Netflix Marvel shows, I always felt like 13. RIP, but I always felt like 13. I was like, oh my God, I'm on 10, I'm on 11, I'm on 12. I felt like I was climbing up Mount Everest with those 13 hour-long episodes. Whereas I always feel like Netflix delivered the best package with 8 episodes. I was like, that's perfect. That's why Stranger Things took off in season 1, in my opinion, is because it was a shortened season and not 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 episodes. Right. And it was a tight 8 episodes of one long movie that you get to have adventures with your friends and your kids and your homies in this story. I think that's kind of what stands out the most to me. But I also love the sci-fi elements of Stranger Things, and I love how season 2 kind of pushed that forward and how season 3 kind of took the baton and kind of ran with it, I guess. Real quick, what'd you think of the Russian angle? What'd you think of this whole Russian thing? It opens right away with the Russians trying to open the portal. What'd you think of that?
I think it's kind of silly. I think it's all. I mean, the whole show is 80s nostalgia, so they're definitely going for
and
the 80s.
And there's levels to this when it comes to 1, 2, and 3, and we'll talk about it. Like which one's the most 80s? Yeah. I don't know if you have a quick take on that.
Well, I know
because you said 1 is the most 80s.
Well, to me, no. I think season 1 just depleted a lot of my enjoyment of it because it was just so much of that. I think at least. And season 2 and to me, it felt like season 1 was like, oh, we're gonna throw in every single 80s reference we have at you in every episode. At least in seasons 2 and 3, it felt like, oh, we're actually telling a story outside of it just being 80s shit. Like it's more, to me, it's more in the peripheral, more in the background, and the story is more in the forefront. Where I felt like season 1, it was like, here's all of our shots that we take from Aliens, or here's all of our references that we have from all the Stephen King material. at least in the later seasons, it was more in the background than in the foreground. But I mean, for me, season three did a good job of honing in a lot of it. But the Russia thing totally feels like an 80s contrivance.
Well, that's what I'm saying. This show got to a level, I feel like later on in season 2, maybe even season 1, where it was becoming so meta. Yeah. I feel like this season was the most meta of all the metas. The fact that they were doing a sci-fi, this sci-fi element of creatures coming into this world, and the ones who are doing it are the evil Russians, and the fact that they would go watch movies about the evil Russians in the 80s and all this stuff about communism and capitalism, and that was like a big theme in this season, and how it's like it's meta as far as like we're a show that does this, but we're still a good show, but we still have the Russians as the evil bad guys. The stereotypical 80s movie is what Stranger Things is. It's a stereotypical 80s show.
All right, which I do think...
I think that's genius, in my opinion. I think that's great. I don't know.
Yeah,
I think that's cool that they embrace the meta-ness of it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we need to keep peddling this whole anti-Russia thing.
I agree with you.
Like,
I agree with that.
I just feel like at least I enjoyed Creed 2 more than I thought I would, because at least in that movie it showed like not all Russians are bad.
100%.
It's just it added another perspective to it, but as just having a blanket Russian now, and I already seen the think pieces like, what is Stranger Things trying to say about the era of Trump? Like, I'm like, all right, come on now, like we get over this a little bit.
Yeah, I'm so with you on that. I really do feel like the whole Russia's hot in the news right now, so let's put it in the show. Like that's so overdone, so overplayed. Like you said, man, there's so many good Russian people that I personally know. So I'm just like, there's such, I don't know. I just don't care for the whole Russia angle. But I guess the reason why is because
that's the 80s thing. That's why I got it.
That's the only reason why. Yeah. And like you said about Creed 2, I love that in Creed 2. When you get to see homie's perspective in Ukraine and in Russia, and you see how he feels personally with this whole world that's around him, and the fact that there's, I don't know, there's a lot of homies that are Russians out there that are cool, man. They're cool people. Yeah. And we get a little bit of that, with Alexei in this season.
Yeah, Alexei. Yeah,
Alexei's a good dude.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that's definitely one. That was probably my biggest drawback. But I think the benefit that this show had in its kind of Russian interpretations, like you said, it did at its heart have an anti-corruption, anti-capitalist message with the whole Mayor Klein being somebody who's like building a mall that's putting out a lot of these small businesses out of business, and because the mall is just kind of like the center of consumerism and is really a hiding spot for this evil, Russian, otherworldly stuff. So I think that angle of it, that the capitalism or anti-capitalism of it was a little bit of an interesting angle.
Oh, I love that. I really think that definitely was a theme that they wanted to tackle on the show. And like you said, the fact that the mall is a cover for a literal portal to hell.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing that I was going to tweet out, but I didn't want to tweet out spoilers, was that they never told me, and this is another kind of goes back to the Russia thing we were talking about. Russians aren't dumb. Russians are smart homies.
Yeah.
Why the hell would they want to open a portal to another dimension that has demons? What?
Yeah.
And Alexei never explained that. Russian homie Alexei. None of the scientists explained it. The general didn't explain it.
Well, I think that's.
And I was like, why would they want to open a portal to hell?
Well, now that's the thing that came from season 1, right? Like the Russians were originally the people who trained 11, and they were the ones who originally kidnapped her and made her do this whole thing so they could control the Demigorg thing. So I think in the universe of the show, the Russians are trying to use this mythological thing to have an extra, and they even show it
as a weapon.
Yeah. I think they're trying to use that as like a weapon or as an extra thing. That's kind of what I took from it, and that's why I think season 1 established that whole thing with Elle.
Sure. But even then, that's a stretch.
Yeah.
Did you see the mind flare at the end? It's Satan.
Yeah.
I don't want to use that. That thing is just gonna destroy the planet. Like Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's the one thing that kind of stood out to me. But I thought that it worked throughout the season. It was very meta, but it was very much on the nose as far as what they were trying to say, as far as the 80s stuff, as far as the consumer stuff. And as far as, this show is half coming of age, half sci-fi, What do you think of the coming of age aspect? Everything not having to do with the Demogorgons and the Mind Flayer.
I thought it was cool. It
The
was
boyfriend and girlfriend shit.
Oh, that was a little strange watching 13-year-olds kiss. But I mean, it's good. It's that's just Hollywood. But I will say though, between Stranger Things, the whole season, especially the finale taking place at the carnival, and Euphoria episode 4 wasn't there. They had the whole episode took place at a carnival, and Spider-Man Homecoming Spider-Man Far From Home having a carnival sequence in there when they're in Europe. I'm really digging the carnival.
Wasn't there another one? Shazam?
Oh yeah, Shazam. Yeah, Shazam.
There's a ton this year.
Yeah, the carnival content is really been pumping this up.
I can almost think of it later on, but
yeah. No,
it's a good point.
Carnival content this year. I don't know what's going on in 2019, but I like it. But yeah, no, it was the coming of age story angle of it was they handled it well. I mean, I think the first season was a lot darker, a little more sinister when it came to like the characters. Like Elle was almost like the bad guy to some extent, but she got softened up because of the Eggos. Also, resounding lack of Eggo waffles in this season. I was shocked. I thought, I always related to Elle on the fact that I like waffles all 3 meals of the day. But, didn't have any of that this time around.
They had one reference, right?
They had one, when she was like in the refrigerator, like trying to do some mind travel thing or whatever. But yeah, it was otherwise, I think the coming of age stuff was cool. I guess some more interesting sci-fi stuff
Same.
in this show
100%,
as well.
me too.
But
I love the sci-fi stuff in this show.
Yeah.
Just the idea, the pitch in Stranger Things, and obviously we get that pitch in season 1 of another dimension and of what is on the other side of that dimension and how many dimensions are there. As a science nerd, as a dimension nerd, as a sci-fi nerd, I guess, I love that shit. I love dimension travel bullshit. I love that. It's one of my favorite aspects in storytelling. But in this season, we got the kids kind of going on 2 different adventures. We had the 11 and Mike and Lucas and the other homies, and then we had Steve the Hare Harrington and Dustin. I was going to forget his name. What storyline did you prefer from the kids' storyline? Because obviously we had the adult one as well.
Yeah, I like the Chips Ahoy or Scoops Ahoy.
Yeah,
that whole team of Dustin and
Robin.
Steve and Robin.
Robin was cool. I liked her. Maya Hawke.
Yeah, Maya Hawke. Yeah.
Shout out to Maya Hawke.
And she and even Erica
That's right, Erica.
Lucas's little sister was also good in that. I thought that was a fun little team they had there. I like that, but I also like that, and with Mike and Elle and Max, that they kind of had not a love triangle, but a friendship triangle between the best girlfriend or the boyfriend, for Elle at least, like what choice you have to make. So I thought that from the coming of age angle, that was a good angle they approached that from. But yeah, probably my favorite team is the Scoops Ahoy team. Little team up though, and the adults. I mean, the adults was kind of silly. I thought all of that shit was a little silly. The whole like going back and forth between Hopper and what's her face, Joyce. Yeah, I thought that was a little ridiculous, but it was funny. Yeah, some good moments in there, but yeah.
What'd you think of the homie who I forget his name, who speaks Russian? The crazy journalist guy.
Oh, that guy. Yeah, he's a little funny. To me, he had the funny lines. He had the funniest lines when it just kind of came out of nowhere, I thought when Hopper and Joyce were arguing and he came in and it was like, why don't you guys just have sex already? Like I thought that was really funny.
No, it was like a 3-minute speech of why you should have sex. I love that. I thought that was so funny.
That was funny.
He's like, pull the call over right now and take off your damn clothes. I was like, shit.
Yeah.
And I love how Alexei came in with like, they haven't had sex yet. He said it in Russian, obviously. That was funny. Yeah, he was one of the best comedic reliefs by far in the show. Okay, man. And now we got to say, who was the standout of this season? Who's your favorite? I think season 2 really cemented my love for Steve the Hare Harrington. I think he's a gangster.
Wow.
Yeah, man, he's the GOAT. But who do you think stole this season? Who's the standout this season? Who's the GOAT of the season?
Standout GOAT? It's a good question. I mean, I always had a soft spot in my heart for Dustin, the Dustin character.
Yeah.
I thought he always had a fun time, but I think in this one he actually showed up and he wasn't making up his little fake girlfriend or whatever.
Yeah.
Turns out
he came in clutch, man.
Yeah.
He came in with the radio stuff.
Yeah.
He came in with the code with his girlfriend.
Yeah. By the way, I guess we should say it's a spoiler. Spoiler for season 3.
It's clearly obvious. It's been time.
Yeah.
People have watched it already.
Yeah.
But yeah, I you're right. Dustin came in clutch. A lot of people did have their support for sure. Like Dustin was one. Steve holding his own against the Russians was good enough. 11 was clutch as hell.
Yeah.
During the later parts of the episodes when she was going up against the monsters.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, man, and I gotta say it, and there's already people on Twitter tweeting about it. Hopper, bro. Yeah. Hopper was the GOAT of this season by far. He became a superhero this season, bro.
Yeah. He's fighting the Terminator and everything.
Fighting the Terminator, taking out villains and bad guys, coming up with plans and strategies, and like using detective work and beating up the mayor. I thought that scene was great. Yeah. I love that scene when he beat up the mayor.
Yeah.
I don't know. I thought Hopper was the GOAT by far. And I gotta say, episode 1, I'm Team Hopper, bro. Right away when he put his foot down, he's like, "No more kissing in my damn house." I was like, "Hell yeah!"
I know, man. What's up with you and all this old man talk you've been talking lately, man?
What do you mean? What are you talking about?
You said you were the one who said you didn't like Euphoria, right? Didn't you tell me that?
Oh my god, bro. That's another. You just said you were uncomfortable with kissing with 13-year-olds.
Yeah, but I mean, they're adults.
Euphoria is like porn.
Nah, but they're adults. Oh, they're adults playing
They're
children.
playing children.
Yeah, but they're adults.
You don't think that's a little much?
They're like 18.
Yeah,
17.
18.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about 10, 11, 12 with Stranger Things.
Yeah,
bro.
but that's kissing. This is craziness.
Yeah,
and
I mean,
Euphoria.
well, it's realistic too.
Is it realistic? Though?
Yeah, I've seen, bro. Like, come on, man.
I have too, but
these high schoolers these days, they're wilding, bro.
I don't know if they're that wilding though. Maybe it's just because
the rich kids are wilding. I can tell you that right now. That's a different.
That's so.
They represent the rich. They represent the rich kids.
Here's my thing. I feel like as great as Euphoria may be, I feel like it's an outdated narrative.
What?
That high school is somehow a porn video. It's not true. It's just not true.
I mean,
like as much as American Pie tried to sell you that, it's just not. I feel like they're going back to American Pie. American Pie is outdated as F.
Nah, I think it's not nowhere near American Pie. American Pie makes it a joke. But I do think the number one thing on like all high schoolers' minds is fucking. So I think that's why the show represents that. But
but you don't find it a little bit uncomfortable that adult entertainment, HBO, is making a show about that?
It's not adult entertainment.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, who's watching the show? It's not teenagers.
Well, yeah, I mean, some teenagers are watching it.
No,
adults are watching it.
I'm telling you,
but I mean, we say adult entertainment, that's literally porn, bro.
Who's watching the show? No, I'm saying who's the audience?
Yeah, I mean,
you think it's a little weird that a 37-year-old is tuning into Euphoria to see some 17-year-olds hook up?
Bro,
that's kind of weird.
Even if a 34-year-old,
kind of creepy.
Hey, man, they're making the show for us, bro, for our generation, man.
Are they?
Yeah, man.
Who has HBO accounts?
Bro, they hand them out at like college campuses, man.
No, bro.
Yeah, they do. They hand them out at college campuses. What are you talking about? All
right, let's get off that train. Either way, Team Hopper,
a great show, man.
Team
Euphoria,
Hopper, y'all too young. Y'all too young. Team Hopper, 3 inches.
3 inches. Come
Door
on, man.
open, 3 inches.
Man, I didn't want to hear that.
That's me. That's how I'm gonna be as a dad.
Hopper got to hang on to the Zendaya show for one episode. I want to see.
He's gonna lose his mind.
I want to see what he'll say.
He's gonna punch them little kids, bro.
Yeah, I know. I want to see what he'll say.
Punch some high schoolers.
Yeah, when Zendaya took the fentanyl, like I want to see what he'll say in that scene. You know,
I don't know. I'm Team Hopper. I thought he was the GOAT of this season. I loved how he stood up against all the Russians at the end. I love when he went up against the Terminator. And I love just his big belly just swinging around, taking out military trained homies. It's so like unrealistic.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's pretty unrealistic.
It's so unrealistic, bro. I'm like, bro, what?
Yeah.
But I love his whole journey, and obviously I still think he's alive. I think he's the American in the final post credits scene.
Oh yeah, they're not gonna
kill him off. But either way, I thought he was the standout of the season. But overall, man. I gotta say, and this was the beginning of the episode. Season 1 ends on this, and I can't lie, bro. Throughout all of season 2, and I looked it up to show my roommates because they were like, oh yeah, he wasn't that bad. No, bro, no. I texted you this. Billy F Billy. You saw season 2, bro.
Yeah.
Billy was a
Billy's a
psycho, bro. Like,
Yeah.
and then I
Racist.
literally tweeted this out where I was like, man, the Mind Flayer literally chose the shittiest person in the entire city to possess as the new monster.
Yeah.
He's like, let me see. Oh, Billy, that guy's effed up. I'm gonna possess him.
Yeah. Well, that's that's just the Stephen King tradition of like having a human bad guy and having him be possessed by the supernatural thing.
That's very true.
It's very Stephen King-ish.
But the fact that I don't know, man. See, we'll talk about season 2 after the break. But season 2, man, Billy was a monster. He was as much a monster as like the Demogorgons. Yeah. The fact that he was like
Lucas, the black. He had his little sister dating a black
dude.
kid.
Like I told my roommates the first time he did that, where he's like, I don't like that kid. I'm like, okay, that's a little weird. And then the second time he did it, he's like, if I ever see you with that kid, Max, that one. Out of everyone, you pick that. I was like, whoa.
Yeah, I knew. I knew what he was saying the first time.
What are you saying, man?
I knew what he was saying the first time, man. I was
that
like,
guy
oh,
is
wow.
super racist.
Yeah.
He's like, I don't want to see you with that. And I rewatched that scene to confirm it. And yep, he's definitely racist.
Yeah.
Like very racist.
100%.
Because he was talking about how he's like dangerous.
Yeah.
Remember that? He was
I know.
I was like, what?
I know exactly what he was saying, bro. First time he said, I was like, yeah,
Billy.
that's how they are. That's how they is. Them Southern boys.
Yeah, and the fact that he got possessed by the Mind Flayer and had this sob story in the background and all, it's fine. I still don't like. I saw someone review it and basically saying the same thing I say, where it's like it doesn't excuse your shittiness. Like you should like just you have a tragic backstory, cool. Doesn't excuse you trying to run over kids on bikes, going 80 miles an hour, and talking some racist bullshit.
I get it. And Stranger Things mixed up. Did Billy stab his father?
No.
Was that in it?
That wasn't it. Yeah.
Okay. They're the exact same. So
I was gonna say, I talked to my mom last night. I called her up and she was like, "What are you gonna talk about on the podcast tomorrow?" And I was like, "Oh, Stranger Things." She's like, "I keep hearing about this show. What is this Stranger Things?" And I'm like, "Oh, it's a really cool show on Netflix, Mom. You should check it out. You would love it." And she's like, "Is it like it?" And I was like, yeah. Actually, it is.
Pretty much the exact same. Yeah, actually.
It's very much like it. And I was thinking about it because I was like, demons, monsters possessing kids, 80s.
You even look down to the
because I pitched it to my mom and I was like, that's kind of it. Yeah.
You even look at the kids. Like they have the one black kid, the one fat kid, the one funny kid. Finn Ruhl's in both of them. Yeah. So it's the same. It's the exact same.
I'm still hyped for it Chapter 2 though. Yeah, I'm hyped for that. I love the first one. I thought it was great.
Jessica Chastain, James McAvoy.
Yeah, that's a cast right there. Bill Hader coming off Barry.
Yeah,
still,
Barry.
Still the best show of this year by far.
Yeah, let's go.
Barry was the shit. I love that show. But either way, back to Stranger Things. Overall thoughts on season 3, and then we can jump to break and talk about 2 and 1.
Yeah, it was a good show. It was good. Yeah. It was good. It was a good series. I think I like 2 a little more.
Sure.
I probably rank them 2, 1. I'd probably rank them 2, 3, and then 1.
I agree. I would say 2, 3, 1. Yeah.
Yeah,
that's my ranking too. I just love 2. I thought 2 was so cool.
2 was great. I even liked episode 7. A lot of people didn't like that.
Yeah, I liked that too. I thought it was a cool little exploration into the world of the superpowers.
Was Stranger Things season 2 10 episodes or 8 episodes?
No, it was 9.
Oh, it was 9.
Yeah, they added an episode. I remember that.
Oh, word. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I'm all for it. I definitely didn't. I don't hate Stranger Things as much as I hated it when it first came out. I didn't hate it when it first came out. I just thought it was all right.
Yeah, and we'll get into that after when we talk about season 1 for sure.
But it's definitely found its footing, and it's a little. I think the show. I think now it's a little safer. I think they even put. I think even before the older seasons were like TVMA. They even put the TV 14.
They know they know that their audience is skewing young. So
well, it's also I think they just know that like this is the flagship Netflix show now, so it's like we gotta keep it as safe and as clean. Yep. They apologized for the smoking thing like a day after the controversy broke out. So it's like whatever.
Yeah, that's what Netflix is doing, man. They're smart. They know that kids watch this show.
Yeah, I guess so, but
yeah, it's a little bit unfair. But either way, I enjoyed it as well. I thought Hopper was a standout. I thought it was a lot of fun, and I think that's kind of what we're looking for in this show. So, all right, guys, we're gonna cut to break real quick. After this break, we're gonna be talking about season 2 and season 1.
This Timestamp is a movie about the future, and you should donate to this project to help breed a future generation of filmmakers that are hoping to do something great.
It's such a rare thing to be able to create art with so many different people from so many different backgrounds. We are trying to provide people that opportunity in exchange for their support. There's never been a better time than now.
We just need your support.
All right, guys, we're back talking Stranger Things. Let's get into the first season, and then we'll finish off with the second season because I think we're all pretty high on this. Both of us are pretty high on the second season. But right away, man, this thing again, summer 2016 premiered. The pitch of the show was very much RB3, 80s nostalgia all the way, 80s till I die. The people who were watching this show were very much the generation from the 80s. That's kind of what got him on board to watch the show. People on Collider, people on other YouTube channels, because that's kind of the generation they're from. It's from the 80s. Yeah. And that was a big pitch coming into the show. But what it delivered was also like a sci-fi element, like experiments on little kids with 11, trying to find Will, this mystery, Winona Ryder being crazy and yelling. Remember Winona Ryder?
Yeah,
she spent the whole season just, where's my boy? Like just screaming. So that's kind of what it became. But initially, you didn't really care for this show, right?
Yeah, I'm not.
You thought it was too 80s.
Yeah, I was just not big on 80s nostalgia in general. We got to grow up. We got to get over it. I think it's just. I mean, it's just a cycle of film. Though we end up repurposing things like pretty much in a 30-year cycle. What's cool in the 80s is cool in the 10s. What's cool in the 50s is cool in the 80s. What's cool in the 2010s. What's cool in the 60s is cool in the 90s. Is what's going to be cool in the 2020s.
Hey, that's me, bro. I told my friend last night because we were talking about Stranger Things, and I told him, I'm like, bro, we're coming, man. Yeah. Our generation, my roommates and I are all exactly the same age. Yeah. All of us with the 90s nostalgia, future filmmakers, all 90s references. Get ready for 90s shit, man. Yeah. Because that's the shit I'm going to put in my movies. Yeah. And I told him, I'm like, bro, think about this. Think about all the Disney live-action movies. We got the Mulan trailer. Lion King, we're both going to see that movie. Yeah. Aladdin, like all this 90s Disney movies, I'm down, bro. I'm down. I love it.
That's what they're going for. But I hope what filmmakers take from that, too, is that the 90s was also in the same way the 1960s were, it's a very revolutionary period in cinema. Very much, we got a lot of independent cinema. We got a lot of independent and interesting voices. Like we saw the beginning of the emergence of Spike Lee. We saw Paul Thomas Anderson, Steven Soderbergh, all these great talented people coming out of late 80s, early 90s. I hope that revolutionary, the beginning of the Sundance Film Festival, I hope that revolutionary spirit carries on into the 2020s as well. But
to counter your point, not to counter, but it's going to be all streaming. Yeah, all the independent cinema stuff.
I mean, hopefully it is. Hopefully it isn't. I mean, I still think ArcLight. I think ArcLight will always have a market. I think if AMC could capitalize off of their A-list program and encourage more independent cinema, that's what a lot of my friends are able to see. Midsommar, including myself, are able to see Midsommar because that's one of the few indie movies that's playing at AMC.
That's right.
So.
Whereas I literally went to the ArcLight.
I think more than anything, though, I think the more and more the blockbusters have been failing as they've been fledgling over the summer. I think that's going to leave a lot more room for independent cinema to come into the landscape. Yeah, I think so because I think that they're running. I mean, shit. They keeping Avengers in theaters for this long because that's the only thing that's generating any funds. So I think. If anything, you could fill those slots. And, AMC, I'm talking to you in particular because AMC is the #1 movie theater chain in the world right now, and they have the AMC A-List program, which I think can help out a lot of people. If they put in a couple of indie movies in those theaters instead of the fucking garbage, Men in Black or whatever comes out, then I think we're going to – some independent cinema and some foreign cinema, I think we're going to see a lot. I think we're going to see see a lot. We'll see a much bigger uptick in those movies having theatrical runs. But I think that lies in the exhibitor. So AMC, you gotta step it up too.
Yeah.
They used to have the AMC Independent program. I don't know if they still have that as much anymore. But yeah, and even people like Alicia Malone was came from doing programs with AMC Independent. So
That's right,
now she's
yeah.
on TMZ. Hey man, listen.
She's on TMC?
Yeah. I think.
Oh,
yeah,
TM. Turner Music. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Turner Classic
I
Movies.
thought you said TMZ.
Oh no, fuck that. Yo, Turner Classic Movies. If you're looking for a couple of dudes to talk some film,
It's TCM, right?
TCM. Is that what I called him? That called
No,
him
TMC.
Oh, that's the movie channel. So both the movie channel and Turner Classic Movies. If you're looking for a couple guys to run the show over there,
please. I will happily do that.
Yeah.
Especially for young people.
Yeah.
It's like hire us for the young people.
Yeah.
For the young perspective.
Yeah. Classic film.
Yeah, it's interesting because a lot of it, you're right. It's theater based. There's a lot of people in the Midwest who say, I really want to see this movie, but my theater's not playing it. So yeah, that's a good point. I'm interested to see what changes and what not. I'm much more on the pessimistic side though. RB3, as you know, as far as like none of those movies are going to see the light of day. They're probably just going to go straight to streaming somewhere.
Well, even if they go to streaming, still opens up the opportunity for them to be explored on streaming platforms.
True.
And I think that's also beneficial.
It's interesting because I was on Hulu the other night, and Hulu has some stuff that I was like, "What's this? What's that? What's going on?" Like,
Hulu's packed, and Amazon Prime is packed. If you go on Amazon Prime, it's packed. Also, if you're on Netflix, like right now, we have both Mean Streets, Taxi Driver, and they have a couple other Scorsese films on Netflix right now too.
Yeah.
So catch up on your Scorsese. Paul Thomas Anderson, he had a window where he had like 7 out of his 8 movies on streaming.
Yeah.
Not anymore.
They disappear so fast.
Yeah.
Every time I'm like, I'm gonna binge them all, and I never do because they're gone.
Yeah. So right now would be the Scorsese moment. If you got Netflix and Amazon and Hulu, you could catch a lot of Scorsese's filmography.
I still think
right now.
Taxi Driver is one of the most. It holds up, man.
Oh, crazy holds up. Yeah.
As far as like even now, it's like, damn.
Yeah, Bernard
This thing is
Herrmann's
ahead of its time.
Yeah, Bernard Herrmann's score in that movie. Martin Scorsese saying the N-word, always classic. It's good stuff.
Speaking of, no, I'm kidding. I was gonna say speaking of N-word. Now I'm kidding. Speaking of scores, man, I tweeted this out like all over the place, and I was gonna do another tweet on it because it really is something that stands out quite a bit to me. I love scores. I just listened to a commercial. I forget what it was selling, but they used the score from If Beale Street Could Talk. Ooh. And I immediately was like, oh, I turned into like a puddle. Yeah. Because that score to me is still one of the best scores I've heard in a while, dude.
Yeah, 100%.
It's so good. Like I immediately got chills. Yeah. But speaking of scores, man, and I think people kind of don't pay attention to this because of the synths and the 80s bullshit that people don't like. But I think this score, especially for season 3, just was so good. It stood out to me so much. There's certain songs towards the end that just, if you take away the synths, just the melody on the piano is just beautiful. And I was like, oh my God, this is gorgeous. But then they add the little 80s synth and the 80s elements into it. But I really got to give a shout out to, I think his name is Kyle Dixon. Kyle Dixon, and it literally is pulled up on my Spotify because I was listening to it. Kyle Dixon and Michael Stein. It's on repeat on my Spotify right now, listening nonstop to this score. Shout out to him for making an incredible score that I think can hold up any day, at any time, not just the 80s, but just now can hold up as you're just listening to it for fun, just like If Beale Street Could Talk, because I immediately tuned into that score as well. Yeah. This score is incredible. Shout out to that. Shout out to the DP. I think there's some cool shots throughout this show and throughout the seasons. And there's some really cool stuff they do with the camera that I think they have. I like DPs that have fun, if that makes sense. Yeah. There's a lot of stuff where there's certain elements where you're like, he's having fun. He's having a good time. And I think DPs should have more good time. And not just be stubborn about how perfect the shot has to be. But if you just have fun and make some different moves and move the camera in interesting ways, I think that's cool.
Or even, lighting is a big part of it. I think the
lighting
Carnival
is huge in this. I mean, the scene where they're walking through the mall and it looks like the super harsh lighting on 11. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, all the stuff in the mall, even at the end where the fireworks are popping off inside the mall. That was very visually stunning. I like the idea of having spectacle just for the sake of spectacle. Yeah. I think the show does a lot of that for a good chunk of it. The
scene where Hopper's climbing up the funhouse, and it's just a crane shot going all the way up. I was like, that's beautiful. Yeah. That's so cool. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I love the way season 3 was shot and season 2 as well. But they have fun, and I think that's a big thing that DPs don't really do anymore.
Yeah.
A perfect example is last week when we talked about Spider-Man 2.
Yeah.
That guy is having a blast. I think it's Bill Pope who shot that movie, but he's having a blast.
Yeah, the first Spider-Man too, yeah.
The first Spider-Man as well, but the second one for me, Spider-Man 2, is just so fun. Every shot is just in your face, in weird angles, in fun angles. It's a comic book reference. It's just so cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, shout out to the score for Stranger Things. I really loved it. But
yeah, the season 2 had the second track that's on the original soundtrack.
Yeah.
I think it's called Walking and Hawkins or something like that. But that one was like real nice and soft and melodic and stuff like that.
Yeah,
so
that's the kind of stuff that I really like. Obviously, the quick, fast-paced, intense one is cool, but I really like the slow songs that they do. They're really cool. Finishing up on season 1, I think the best part of season 1 is that they set up what they can do for season 2. I don't know if you agree with that.
Well, it's funny because they had the original kind of construct of the show. It wasn't. I don't know if they anticipated it being a series, but I think it was originally supposed to be a limited series that was one season. And the structure of the first season was all based on, Dungeons and Dragons campaign. So I believe the Duffer Brothers even talked in an interview once saying that they would have, if going back, because there's multiple kinds of Dungeons and Dragons campaigns. There are like solo one-off campaigns, and there are longer, like kind of sprawling campaign kind of structures. So when they did the first season, they kind of built the whole first season around like a one-off kind of campaign. And the Duffer Brothers said if they would have went back and known how successful the show would have been, they would have kind of established the quote-unquote D&D campaign as more of a longer, sprawling kind of thing. So they would have had a lot more different elements in the way that story was told.
Yeah.
So it definitely set a path for season 2. But I think the first season was much more intended to be a self-contained thing initially.
Sure.
So I think if they would have known how successful the show would have been, it probably would have played out a lot differently. But.
Yeah, speaking of that, I got to give a shout out because I remember as if it were yesterday the marketing campaign behind this show for season 1, like not even for season 2, because the season 2 was great, but for season 1 was off the planet. It was so good.
Yeah.
Just the posters, the images they would use, the art, the style, the lighting, the red effect that they have on all their posters is really cool. It's
the opening sequence.
The opening sequence, like all that stuff that they used for the marketing is phenomenal. And that's props to Netflix, man, for doing that stuff. Yeah. I know there's a street, I think it's on Wilshire, where they always have the Netflix banner, like what's the new thing for Netflix? It's just pure Netflix stuff.
Yeah.
And when they had the Stranger Things one, I remember thinking, man, that looks like I don't even have to see a trailer. Like that looks cool. Just the poster makes me want to see this show. So shout out to them. Let's finish up with season 2, man. Season 2 is our favorite. I think season 2 really pushed the sci-fi elements forward, which is again caters to my liking. I love that stuff. I think it really pushed the characters forward. I think they developed certain characters that were kind of stereotypes in the first season, especially with Nancy and with Steve, into full-fledged characters that are actually interesting and cool.
Yeah.
RB3. What do you think about season 2? And you're wearing a Stranger Things shirt. I can't believe I haven't said that.
Adidas. Stranger. You know what I mean? I love it. My parents, or my mom, initially thought it was a weed logo, but I had to explain Stranger Things, Demigorgs. I like season 2 a lot more. Like I said, I think that it finally established. It was less. I felt like season 1, I was just so distracted by like, oh, this is this 80s trope. This is that 80s trope. This is this 80s character trope. And I don't even care enough about 80s movies to like actually know the references, but you just know it like inherently, you know? Whereas season 2, there were a lot of 80s references in that as well, but like I said, it fell more to the background. I think you're right. Like they did develop characters like outside of the expectations. And while, I'm sure the more seasoned 80s movie or television veteran will be able to continue to tell me what they're taking more from 80s related content in seasons 2 and 3. At least to me, being the novice that I am in terms of like 80s nostalgia shit, at least at the very minimum, it feels like its own thing, and I'm very appreciative of that. Now, what I will say though, I think that particularly over in season 2 more than season 1, season 2 and season 3 both had themes. Like season 2 had the Halloween theme. Season 3 had the 4th of July theme. Season 1 kind of didn't have a theme. It was just kind of its own thing. I like the Halloween, I think, aesthetic more, especially for this kind of horror-ish based show. I think it kind of works a lot more. And I also like the creature in this one, the tall, skinny, fool. I think I like that one a lot too. So, yeah. Yeah,
and I love that they explore the upside down so much more.
Yeah.
Like in the first season, it's like, oh, this is crazy. In the second season, it's like, no, it's like a dimension. It's like something that people can go into. And the fact that Winona Ryder and Joyce and Hopper go into the different dimension, like go out of their way to find Will. And the fact that my favorite thing of this whole season was the fact that it becomes like a demon possession movie at the very end, with Will becoming possessed by a damn demon. Right. I mean, he was possessed throughout the whole season, but those last 4 episodes of him just, like, get out of my son! Like, it's a literal, like, exorcist movie. I was like, yo, this is crazy. It's so visceral, and the fact that he's, like, possessed by a giant demon, and there's an actual scene that's almost, like, straight out of The Exorcist. I don't know. What do you think of that, Adam?
I think it's good. Yeah, I think maybe, again, that's another thing they probably took from, like, Exorcist is obviously a big 70s, 80s thing. But, they took from things probably – maybe I'm biased, but maybe they took from things that I actually like. And maybe, and I know season 3 had the 80s references littered all over it too with the Terminator, like we talked about, all that shit. But again, maybe that's just things that I like more than the Goonies or, the show references a lot of Stand By Me and a lot of those kind of movies too. But I think I'm much more fascinated in like the horror, sci-fi, more modern, more lasting things that they take from and kind of incorporate in there too. And outside of Stranger Things, it's to be duly mentioned that the young breed of filmmakers that are like working like really prolifically in television right now. We're talking about the Stranger Things, the Duffer Brothers, the creator of Euphoria. I think his name is Sam Livingston. You look at the guy who does Mr. Robot,
Sam Esmail.
Sam Esmail. All of their genres and styles are all very influenced by older cinema, by classic cinema. They often sample, particularly in Mr. Robot. They a lot of times they sample older movies, like from the music to the shots to the. In the same way that Tarantino does, that they kind of sample one thing and then repurpose it with another kind of thing and just make it its own original thing. I think Stranger Things does that a lot. I think Mr. Robot and Sam Esmail do that a lot. And even in the show Homecoming that's on Amazon also kind of in one level or another kind of appropriates the podcast that it's based on almost directly too. I think the whole sampling element that happens and that's happening in newer television is an interesting wave to go. I think Stranger Things is a little more upfront about it. It's a little more like we're going to give you, we're kind of going to spill all of our guts, in terms of like visual design. I think visually, I think Stranger Things is where the 80s kind of has its biggest influence, whereas other shows kind of have more influence from older films from like 70s or 60s or use music from those shows more or less. I like that Stranger Things kind of has its own original score, its own original soundtrack, and it has its own original theme and flavor and characterization. A lot of stuff, at least as it further goes on.
It's absolutely true. On a filmmaking aspect, it's paying tribute to so many different things and using all those elements to create an original story. Yeah. And the fact that, like we talked about earlier in the episode of season 3, where it's very, very, very meta, but they almost kind of embrace the meta-ness of it. And as far as like we're paying tribute to movies as the kids are in the show watching that movie, and we're a movie. Right. It's like this 3 different layers of meta storytelling and meta narrative, which works. Yeah. I mean, we talked a little bit about it with other movies like Into the Spider-Verse and stuff like that, or even like 21, 22 Jump Street, where they're so self-aware that it works. Yeah. Like it really works, where you're like, man, it's very this genre and this stereotype, but it works because they're able to embrace that they're self-aware of it.
Yeah, we're deep into metamodernism, man.
That's
Deep
what it
in
is, bro.
Metamodernism.
Metamodernism.
Yeah.
That's so true. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Remind the audience real quick what that is.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's kind of the philosophy, or not the philosophy, but the school of thinking that this era of cinema is defined by how meta things are. In the same way that, you know, old Hollywood's kind of considered the classical era, you know, then there's the modern era, then there's the postmodern era, which is like considered from 1977, from Star Wars to, and in film school they teach you postmodernism is from 1977 to now, which to me never made any sense because every other era of film is like 10 years, 12 years. But they're like 40 plus years. Here it is. But new film scholarship indicates that now is the generation now is more meta-modernism, and the fact that things like Deadpool and the fact that things like you said, 21, 22 Jump Street, Into the Spider-Verse, and even serious movies like Logan and Interstellar all reference other external things, or they all reference intertextual or extratextual things outside of the film that exist in the real world, but reference it as if it's part of the fictionalized world in and of itself. So, yeah, that's kind of, and I think Stranger Things is a prime example of that. Of course, we talked about on previous podcasts. I think we mentioned that for some of the other movies that we've talked about in the past. Tarantino is also a good example of somebody who is a practicer of this meta-modernism kind of wave, but I think particularly with Stranger Things, it's a good example of that because it really goes to show how much of the previous generation influences the current generation of filmmakers now, in the sense that even they said the same thing back in the 80s, like, or they say the same things back in the 80s, right? Like a lot of what the style that was adopted in the 80s came from this kind of older, kind of more family-friendly kind of style of filmmaking, at least for the kids' movies, and this kind of embraces and incorporates a lot of that Midwest, family-friendly, kid-centric movie, or in this case, television experience. So
yeah, and it works. It works, man. Like we mentioned the numbers before, but like 40 million, 18 million finished. Yeah. It's one of those things where this show is reaching such a broad audience of like there's so many teenagers that watch this show. There's 12-year-olds that watch this show. There's 14-year-olds. There's 40-year-old men who watch the show. 50-year-old men who watch the show. Like it's a pretty big audience, and it's one of those things where I was talking to my friend. It's funny that the biggest show on Netflix is a show about little kids. Yeah. There's a bunch of like 40-year-old dudes who, if they would see like Finn Wolfhard or Millie Bobby Brown, they'd be like, "Oh my God, can I take a picture with you?" And it's kind of weird.
Yeah, that part's a little weird.
It's a little weird. And I was talking to my roommate about it because I'm like, it's kind of weird. But I watch it, and those people mainly watch it for the sci-fi, for the throwbacks, for the meta elements within the show. The meta-modern elements, whereas new generations are watching it because they like Millie Bobby Brown or because they like that's the kind of, they don't like it because it's 80s stuff. They like it because they think the actors are cool or something like that. Like my nieces and nephews would watch this show and they're around that age. So that's the power of Netflix, man. The power of Stranger Things. It's still running. They're trying to branch out from merchandise.
Yeah.
They got
I think this officially sanctioned, but
Halloween Horror Nights. They have a maze.
Yeah, they had an amazing thing where they turned Santa Monica into.
That's right. I was hoping that would pop up a little more. The Santa Monica Pier turned into the Hawkins Carnival, right?
Yeah.
And then they did the Baskin Robbins Scoops Ahoy thing.
Scoops Ahoy, yeah.
That stuff works, man.
Yeah, that's good stuff. I do wish there was a little more Egos in this series so we could have some Ego promotion. That would have been dope. I remember I remember season 2. It was like everywhere. Like you couldn't buy a box of Eggos without seeing 11 on it or whatever. So, salute to Millie Bobby Brown. You know she's a big star now. Godzilla didn't do that
God
well.
cover her heart though.
Yeah.
God bless her.
Yeah.
Put her inside a bubble. And
you got
protect her.
You got to. I think it's a little weird that that Finn I can never pronounce the kid's last name.
I think it's Wolf.
Wolfhard, yeah. And Millie Bobby Brown, they get like the second credit behind Winona Ryder now. I think it used to be Winona Ryder and David Harbour.
Oh, yeah.
And
that was an article that came out, I think, a year and a half ago where it talked about they renegotiated their deals, the kids did.
Yeah.
Where they were getting bank.
Yeah.
They're getting money.
Yeah.
So
It's big, though.
get that bag, bro.
Salute to that bag.
Yeah.
Yeah, good television, good bubblegum television that is easy to binge and that Netflix found success
and great performances, man. I gotta say, season 2. I know we kind of brushed over it a little quickly, but Will, oh my god,
oh yeah, I never mentioned Will.
That kid
Will's,
when he's tears streaming down his face, and I was like, oh my god, he's gonna make me cry.
Yeah,
I mean, Millie Bobby Brown was by far the one that stood out the most in season 1. But in season 2, I was like, this kid can act.
Yeah.
My god, he's the best actor on the show.
Yeah.
And he didn't have anything to do in season 1. So, yeah, the performances in this show are incredible. So we'll see how it continues to grow. Obviously, like we said, it's an interesting narrative as far as how people watch this show, how many people are still watching it, or if they watch an episode a week, 2 episodes in a day, 3 episodes, or binge it in a day. Like, all that stuff actually plays effect, in my opinion, on the success of the show. But it seems like most people are like you and me, and binge the whole thing in the span of a couple days or 4 or 5 days.
Even season 1, like, I didn't really particularly enjoy Rose Headed for like the first 6 episodes, but I kept going just because I wanted to see what was going to happen next. But by the time we got to episode 7 and 8, I was like really into it. So
yeah. Either way, one of my favorite things of this season, it's the last thing I'll end on, is people's reaction, the audience when they cut to they were watching Back to the Future in 1985.
Yeah.
I put this on my Instagram because I was like, that's the funniest thing ever because it's low key true.
Yeah.
They're like da, 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 and then it ends and they're like, yeah, like they scream and they're just going crazy. Because Back to the Future was huge.
Yeah.
When that thing came out, that thing blew off records of box office. But either way, Stranger Things, auto references I enjoy because I grew up with Back to the Future.
Yeah.
I don't know if you did.
Of course I did. Yeah.
Okay, you did. All right, cool. You cool now, RB3. You fit in the cool club.
Yeah.
All right, guys, that's our thoughts on Stranger Things Season 3. I feel like we got a lot into it, so hopefully you enjoyed. Let us know what's your favorite season. Who's your favorite character on this show? Real quick, who's your favorite character? Off the top. Off the top of the dome.
That's a good one. I'm always going to root for my black dude, Lucas.
That's great. I love Steve. Steve's my homie. Low-key Hopper was coming up, though, in this season. So either way, guys, let us know in the comments down below. What do you think? And holler us at Twitter. I'm at Squad Leader Race.
I'm at RB3. I'm sorry. I'm not at RB3 Schmoes. I'm at Director RB3.
Because you're a professional now. Director RB3. And he's making good things, man. Go check out that
Indiegogo. Yeah, we're still running the campaign. Links in the description down below. So go and check that out.
Check it out, guys. All right, from the Mean Enough podcast, I'm Ace.
This is RB3.
And we're peacing out. Peace out, guys.